Welcome to the Education in Isolation podcast with me, Angela Connell, where we will explore the challenges of businesses moving from a face-to-face training mode to an online training environment. Many businesses have been caught off guard by the COVID-19 pandemic, but the situation is proving to be a catalyst for new possibilities and opportunities for the training industry. Let me and my guests help you make the most of these opportunities and to navigate the transition so that you and your organisation come out stronger and more resilient than when you went in. Education is the answer and you are the leader. Okay, welcome Brett. This is Brett Jarman, who is the CEO of expertsonair.fm. Brett has been working with Vivacity to assist us with our podcast. We came up with the idea to do a podcast last year after researching into it and identifying that there's actually a lot more work involved with actually setting up a podcast, not the expertise of my team. We engaged Brett to assist us with launching our podcast, and now we continue to engage him because it's so much easier just to be able to pop up the audio, and then I know it's just all done and looked after for me. So I'd like to thank you, Brett, for coming into my life and helping our organisation. It's been awesome having you as part of our team with the podcast side, and welcome.
Thank you, Angela. Welcome to your podcast.
Yeah, it's great to actually be on my own podcast.
Yeah, it's good to be on the other side of the fence for a change. So, Angela, I know one of the questions that you often ask your guests when you're interviewing them is, who are you and what do you do? So now it's your turn to answer that question.
Right. So my name is Angela Connell and I'm the owner of Vivacity Coaching and Consulting, and we help training organisations get compliant and stay compliant. But one of the things that we've identified since COVID-19, and with training having to move from where it was, which was basically mainly face-to-face to online, we've also identified that we can help non-accredited training organisations get their training online. So teaching them the tools, techniques and technology to get their training up live.
Right. So I know, Angela, you've been in the training field for nigh on 20 years. What is it about training that attracts you and what keeps you in that industry?
Okay, so I started in the training industry as a training coordinator over 20 years ago, and I sort of fell into it. I actually went I went to a college and I was learning desktop publishing and graphic design. And whilst I was there completing the training, I was there for a year. At the end of the year, the training organisation offered me a job as a trainer assessor. And I was like, oh, okay. It was just something I never even considered before in my life. But at the time, I was also in the process of moving to Singapore. So I didn't take up the offer, moved over to Singapore, spent some time there and then came back to Australia. And then I thought, well, you know what, I might give this training thing a go. And I ended up working in a few positions where I was delivering training coordination. So I was helping put together the resources and training, and then I ended up becoming a trainer assessor. And then about 3-4 years down the track, I ended up working for an RTO where I was there full time as a trainer assessor, and I left there and started at another RTO, and within 6 months I bought that RTO. I took over that RTO and I was delivering services. So we had training in business, hospitality and aged care, and we started with 8 qualifications on the scope. And 3.5 years later, when I sold it, we had 35 qualifications on the scope, and we expanded from 2 training rooms to 14 training rooms across 2 sites. And we also had 40 trainers and 8 administration staff, and that RTO is still going today. I left there thinking I'm never going to work in the training industry again. I'm going to get out and go do something totally different. Studied psychotherapy, and I really liked it. I loved the modalities and understanding how the brain works and how families work. and how we are a result of our family history. But what I found was I'm very solutions based. I can't wait for the other person to come up with a solution, particularly if I can see that solution. So I ended up going back into the training industry, and I've been consulting ever since. So that was 2009 when I sold my RTO, and I've been coaching and consulting ever since.
Alrighty, so it sounds like you got a fair bit of experience under your belt.
Just a little bit. Since then, we've worked with over 300 training organisations around Australia.
Right, okay. Very good. So, Angela, we're recording this just as Australia's coming out of lockdown, depending on what state you're in. Depends on what phase of COVID lockdown I should refer to it, because if someone's listening to this 2 years down the track, they may not make that connection. So, now, in a sense, your business has actually gone through a similar journey to what your clients have been. So, you've been predominantly face-to-face training up until now. Is that correct? And so in the process of pivoting yourself, you've also had to clients to pivot. So how's that journey been?
Yeah. So how it all came about was I've actually had a few illnesses this year, and I was in and out of hospital, and I was just coming out of hospital, and it was announced on the news that we were going to go into lockdown and go into isolation. And the big thing that the first thing I thought of wasn't really us, it was our clients. And I just went, our clients are predominantly delivering face-to-face. They're going to be massively impacted. I already forecasted it was going to be about 6 months before we come out of isolation. So I knew that this, being an RTO owner myself, I knew how that would affect them and how the impact would be on their organisation not being able to have training face-to-face in a training organisation. The other one that was going to impact was the fact that they couldn't even go to an employer's place to go deliver training anymore. So the first thing I thought of was, okay, what can I do? What can I do to help our industry to make sure that we keep going? Because I really did identify whenever there's a downturn in the economy, whenever there's unemployment, the training industry is really required. It's when they really need us. So I knew that we were going to be needed, but how were we going to meet those needs? So I thought, okay, all right, I came up with, it wasn't called Education in Isolation till a few days later, but that was a Friday. By the Monday, I had a webinar launched to start on the Friday. I was targeting our clients, but it was anybody in the training industry, because I truly believed they needed to learn the tools, technology and techniques to get online. Otherwise, they weren't going to know what to do. And a lot of them didn't even know what type of equipment they needed, like cameras and microphones and lighting. And there was a range of different things that they had no idea about. And I'd already been doing it for 5-6 years. So I've already been delivering training online. Now, our training model was we delivered a series of workshops around Australia. So we went to Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and we would do that twice a year, and we would deliver 3 workshops each time. That I knew I'd already cancelled those because of my health condition at the start of the year, and I knew I couldn't travel. So I'd already cancelled that. And then I thought, well, what else can I do? So thankfully, last year we actually recorded 2 of our workshops, and they are now online. So we're able to offer those straight away online to all of our clients. We're now doing live. So we do live webinars. We've been doing live webinars for 6 years, and that was the RTO compliance and CRICOS compliance, and we delivered that once a month, so each of those once a month. Since then, we're now offering a mastermind every week. So we just had our 5th one last week. So we started with Education in Isolation, and we did that every week. And what we found was our clients who were attending and the people, we had a couple of people who paid to come along as well, they found it so invaluable that they wanted it to keep going. And I thought, well, I think it's valuable for our clients that they get that ongoing support and not just in training, but in the business side of their RTO. So for me, it was a realization that I actually got to do what I've been wanting to do for such a long time, which was coaching.
Right. So it sounds like there's more upside than downside from the whole COVID situation for you.
Yeah, certainly. Like April hit us hard. I think a lot of people just went, oh, okay, we're not going to spend any money right now until we know what's going on. But what I've seen since that is we've just been focused on, okay, what content can we get out there that's going to help people get online? So it's been really good because a lot of people are seeing that content and they're learning from it and able to grow from it. So I've seen the benefits of it. I've certainly seen it in our clients. I've seen some amazing transformations through our clients. One of them we actually interviewed recently for a podcast, Kylie. She has a dance studio. And if anybody says to me they can't get their training online, I will bring up Kylie, because she converted all of her training to online. And she said if it wasn't for our training, she wouldn't have had any idea how to do that. So for me, that is my what I feel good about is how I've helped our clients through all of this.
Right. Now, I can say I've actually heard that episode, and I know she made the comment that some of the students were coming back performing even better than what they were from the live studio training. So yeah, totally back up that comment that anyone could do it. So Angela,
yeah, and I strongly recommend she has a combination of face-to-face and online in the future. I see that with all training organisations.
Yeah, that would make total sense. So it sounds like you were pretty well prepared, Angela. Number one, whether it be through intuition or good luck, you were well prepared for the onslaught of COVID. But when it hit, obviously there would have been a lot of stressful thoughts, and on the top of the health issues that you were having at the time. Thinking back over the last 3 months or so, has it been as hard as you expected? Have there been some pleasant surprises out of it? How would you evaluate that journey, so to speak?
So it's certainly been a journey and very much a roller coaster, actually. It was just a constant thinking on the feet. I've never worked so hard and I've never worked so long. So the hours have been very long. But I knew that what I needed to do is just keep the wheels churning and keep going. So what was really good is I'd already started working on a whole heap of projects and ideas last year, but this year it came to fruition because of COVID-19. One of them was the podcast. So it was something we'd been talking about for a while, and because of education isolation, we just went, right, we've got to get this podcast out there because we need to get it out to the public so we can help them with managing their training organisations. So yeah, it's been ups and downs. We're certainly up now. We're doing quite well. We're getting positive feedback from our clients, and the way I see it, we're actually getting a lot of inquiries for new registrations. So people are seeing a lot of opportunity to get into the training space, and we're also seeing a lot of opportunities for a lot of those non-accredited training providers who were delivering face-to-face training in a workshop style, who now need to get online. So we're helping a lot of them with how to develop that. And it was a real big realization that I could help these people because we've been developing training materials and lesson plans and meeting requirements of doing strategies for training for years. So it's actually quite easy to transition across to non-accredited as well. So lots of new opportunities, I think, is what I've identified of what's come out of this.
Right. And what would you say is the biggest challenge your clients have faced through this process?
The biggest challenge our clients have faced has been the isolation. So it was having to adapt their training rooms. So the ones that did continue to deliver training, they needed to make sure that they had the 4 metre square rule implemented. Some of the ones that were hardest hit were those ones that were delivering 1-day courses. So they were, forklift driving, traffic control. First aid was still going because they needed first aid, but they had to change the way that they were delivering. So for the majority of them, the biggest challenge that they had was adapting to the technology and adapting to what they needed to be able to deliver that training. And it wasn't necessarily the RTOs, it was the trainers that were having difficulty with that. So I think majority of them are now, so we're working on a recovery plan now and how to get the RTOs back up and going with the students back into the classroom, making sure that they're meeting all of their safety requirements. But the way we see it is they do need to have this combination of face-to-face and online training, because I don't know how much longer this is going to be for, and they're definitely not going to be able to fill their classes as much as they used to be able to fill them. So if they can do a combination of face-to-face and online, they'll still get their numbers.
Right. And from a compliance point of view, Angela, has there been a shift in what people have to do to remain compliant? Like, are there extra requirements now that some of the training isn't kind of hands-on, so to speak?
Yeah. So one of the things that has been very positive that's come out of all of this is the Australian Skills Quality Authority, who is our regulator, also known as ASQA. They're the regulator for our industry, and they actually took them a bit of time to adjust. We had clients who were in the middle of, they were already booked in for an audit, and then it was delayed and postponed, and then we ended up doing audits via teleconference. They didn't even have Zoom. They just had a teleconference. I was on Zoom with the client and ASQA were on a teleconference phone. So it was very interesting. They seem to be more behind when it comes to implementing that technology. So we were able to keep going. We've still been auditing our clients. We've still been doing assessment validation. We've been doing everything online. But the way I see it is we can do this ongoing. So on a compliance front, we can still do what we were doing previously with our delivery of our training and our assessing and our auditing and that whole process. What I see is ASQA will most probably change their model as well, whereby they will do more online auditing because it certainly saves a lot of money when it comes to travel and accommodation for both the regulator and for the client. ASQA also released a page on their website which was all about distance delivery. It's funny they called it distance delivery when most people went online. So I actually converted a lot of what that content that they had on their website to online and what they needed to meet in order to stay compliant. So there was some relaxation around fees. They reversed all fees that were paid, so registration fees for the whole year. They also were relaxed on other fees because they understood that a lot of RTOs were going to be affected. There were a few RTOs that shut down because they couldn't cope with the isolation and not having any students. But I believe that's because they didn't put strategies in place to transition to online. There were some that shut down that really shouldn't have shut down because they could have put online training in place. There were some training products like the first aid unit where they changed the assessment method because one of the assessment methods is doing CPR. You no longer needed to put your mouth across the face of the mannequin, and that was for safety requirements. But other than that, it was just making sure that you were collecting sufficient evidence of the student's competency. You couldn't just go, yes, they're competent. You still needed to collect sufficient evidence. So we were coming up with strategies for our clients on how they could do that in a virtual environment.
Right. So, for example, how would you do that in the case of a forklift driving course? How would you assess someone's performance at that virtually?
Yeah. So what we identified with forklift driving is they could do a component of the forklift driving, so the theory, online or distance, and then they could do the face-to-face. But the only way that they could do it is one-on-one. or small
Right.
groups, because they still had to have the space around them. So what we identified is the best method would be to have an online component where you deliver all the theory. It could be even a live Zoom training session that you could do, and then you get them in individually to assess them using the forklift, or it might be doing training with it that way. So it's just looking at how you're delivering, making sure that we're meeting social distancing requirements, but keeping everyone safe at the same time. And it's just coming up with innovative ways to do that, and which I did see with a few of our clients doing that.
Right. Okay. So thinking now, Angela, of your clients' clients, i.e. the people who are turning up for the training, how have they adapted to working online? Is it something that they've embraced, or are they kind of reluctant to participate? What's your experience of that?
Yep. So in the majority, the students have taken to it like a duck to water. A lot of them were they were in isolation themselves. They weren't working, so at least the training gave them a purpose, something to do. There were challenges, though, where there were learner cohorts, so students who were financially challenged and weren't able to access internet, computers. Like the only thing they had close enough to a computer would have been their phone. So it was coming up with ideas of what we could do, like you could deliver video lessons on a phone instead. The same thing has happened within the school environment as well, public schools, whereby the financially challenged students are the ones that have suffered because they weren't able to get those direct contact with their teachers or their trainers. So I think that's the area where it has been the most challenging. But what I did find is some of our RTOs were doing phone meetings. So the trainers were getting on the phone with the students. Some of them, there was one RTO in particular, they were delivering aged care training, and they were all low language literacy and numeracy, and they were also didn't have laptops, didn't have access to internet. There was all sorts of challenges there. So what they did was they created smaller groups and delivered face-to-face training within those smaller groups.
Right. And Angela, among your clients, are there any who just take a short-term view of this and see it as something temporary? Like the buzzword at the moment is the new normal. Do any of them think they're going to go back to the old normal, or are they all kind of on board with the fact that there will be a new normal?
At the beginning, they just thought we were going to be temporarily locked down and that was it. We were just going to, first of all, it was, we'll just shut down for 2 weeks and then open back up again and everything moved back to normal. But as the months drew on, it became apparent that this was not going to be the way, and we were telling all of our clients it's not going to be the way. It's definitely not going to be 2 weeks. It's going to be more, and you need to make sure you're putting mechanisms in place, or otherwise you're going to lose your business. So we looked at the strategies that they needed to put in place to get online. I think now the reality has set in. There are RTOs who are now getting students back in, but they have suffered over that time. What was some of the great things that we did see is those RTOs that were, so they're paying full-time trainers who weren't training, they were getting job seeker. So what they did was they got them to do some work in the back end. So assessment validation, rewriting assessment tools, going through and fixing their resources. And I think that was the smart thing to do within their RTO, because now they're ready to go again. And the other big thing was adding other qualifications to their scope, or looking at other products that they could deliver.
Right. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask, how has the process, what have you learned from the process of pivoting, and how has that improved your business?
So through this process, I think what I've learned is I had a big challenge whereby I saw the new market that we could help, which was the non-accredited training organisations, and I had to think about different ways that we could expand our market as well. And I had a serious case of imposter syndrome with that, whereby I thought, well, I know RTO world really well. What do I know about non-accredited training? And I had to be slapped about a few times by my team members who were like, Angela, you've been delivering online non-accredited training for 6 years. So how is that different from what your potential clients would be with consultants? And we can build these lesson plans. It's all stuff that we can do. So I think that was the biggest barrier I had, was me. It was my my self-talk. But basically I just kept pushing through, kept getting stuff out. And it was actually the realization is, once you put your mind to it, you can do whatever you put your mind to. And I really believe in the saying by Tony Robbins, where the energy goes, the focus flows. Or where the focus flows, the energy flows. I really love that, because it really is, if you are focusing on what your desired outcome is, and one is setting 3 high value activities a week and focusing on those and getting those done.
Right. Excuse me. So you also mentioned, Angela, that some of your clients had to redeploy their team members and have them do different tasks to what they were used to doing. Have you had to do that in your business?
No, funnily enough, we were actually still very busy. Right. So we had a lot of clients who had come on board with us before COVID-19. So we have a membership program where we're looking after our clients ongoing. And one of our focus, that day when I was in hospital thinking, what am I going to do? One of the things that I thought of is we can't afford to lose any members, and I need to focus on our members and what we can do to keep them going. My compliance team, they were very busy with audits. We still, the world still keeps going. We still had audits. We still had clients who had issues with the regulatory body. So they were focused on that. So they were only, if it wasn't for my team doing that, I wouldn't have been able to do all of the other stuff I was doing, which was, getting the podcast launch, doing education isolation webinars, setting up more training. And I think we were ideally positioned at the time. I did about 2.5 years ago, I really identified that our target market needed to be memberships because the regulatory body was changing their requirements. So I focused on memberships, and we're about the only consulting organisation for the training industry that actually has a membership program. And that membership program is really looking after the clients on an ongoing basis with not just compliance, it's the business side of running an RTO as well. So I think I've been doing this for 10 years now, I think we just structured ourselves so well that we were ready for it.
Right. So, Angela, you're helping clients with program development, program delivery, and for those who need compliance or accreditation, you're helping them with that as well. Do you also help them with marketing their programs, and how has that changed for them now that they're marketing online programs or a combination of online and face-to-face?
Excellent question, because this is what's actually evolved out of all of this. As I said, we were doing the education and isolation webinars, live webinars. We now have transitioned to a mastermind, and that mastermind is very much focused on the other side of running a training organisation, which is money, finance, marketing, business development, mindset, leadership. So we've been working a lot in that area. Last year, we actually conducted a survey of our industry, and we got over 150 responses to this survey. And the question in the survey is, what is your problem? And we actually came up with the top 3 problems that the industry have. One was compliance, which we're all over. We've been doing it for many years. Second was time. So we really identified that they needed some help with managing their time. Most business owners within a training organisation is doing everything, and they're not automating anything, and they don't know how to delegate. So it's a bit of leadership and a bit of automation training that they need. And the other was money. So it was how to market. So we've been offering masterclasses now for the last, we've done 2 masterclasses. We're doing 1 a month now. So I've got a big network of people within a variety of different areas who are now delivering masterclasses for the industry. So they're free masterclasses. The first one we did was on video marketing. The second one we did was on automation, because it's an area where I've identified that our clients need help. So I could see the solution. I knew the solution was, to save time, you need to automate. It's what we do. We automate a lot of what we do. Outsourcing, delegating, and that leadership skills is what they need. And then that will bring in more money when they're able to do all of that. So that was certainly an area with our clients that we identified they need a lot more help in. We did a survey at our last mastermind to find out where people are marketing, and we identified that there was actually no one in the group, not one person, there was 20 people in the group, not one person was using Google Ads.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was like, really? You don't use Google Ads? So we've identified we're going to teach them how to use Google Ads and what that's going to do. Like, the training industry is a highly competitive industry, and they've got a lot of competition out there. If they're not doing Google Ads, they're not going to be seen.
Yeah.
So so that's what we're helping with now, is that other side of the business and getting them, we want the best quality training organisations to be our members.
Right. So it sounds to me like that sounds very holistic. You're not just teaching people how to run the training side of their business. It's actually running a training business, which is a very different thing.
Yeah. And when I had my RTO, like, I grew it from a little RTO that was losing a lot of money. I bought it from another entity, and it was losing a lot of money. And I turned it around from, had 8 qualifications on the scope. We had, 3 or 4 trainers, to over 40 trainers, 35 qualifications, and all those sites. And what I was really good at was marketing, networking, business building, and that. So I was also good at the compliance side, but I knew that the secret to running a successful training organisation is your brand and what you're doing with your brand of your organisation. And so that's what I've always taught our clients that, and it's always been my passion, but it wasn't our core of what we did, whereas now it's coming out this year as a core of knowing our clients are going to need it.
Right. Okay. So thinking ahead, Angela, we've covered a fair bit on the turmoil of recent months, but thinking ahead, just in terms of government support, there's been a fair bit of temporary government support, but I can see the writing on the wall. I'm not in your field, but one thing that I know comes with high unemployment is a lot of government support for training. So do you help your clients with that side of things, and is that something you're optimistic about in the coming months and years?
Yeah, so I know it might sound horrible, but I actually identified straight away that there would be government funding coming. So I knew it would come. It would just be when the government would get their act together to be able to provide that. With high unemployment, the government always tends to throw money at training organisations, which I was very good at when I had my RTO. When I sold my RTO, I'd secured $1.1 million worth of government funding contract. And that was just the government funding, never mind the fee for service. So that is an area that I'm very passionate about. And it's very much identifying what are the skill shortages and adding those qualifications to your scope, or making sure that you have the training that's going to meet those skill shortages to be able to access that funding. So just because you're an RTO doesn't mean you're going to get funding. It's really the skill shortages, because that's what the government want you to train in. And what I see right now is there's a need for reskilling of the hospitality industry, in particular with safe work practices, including social distancing and hygiene and infection control in those sort of areas. There's also been a massive increase in need for people working within aged care facilities and disability providers. So there will be funding in those areas. I call it my crystal ball. I look into my crystal ball of what I think is going to happen in the future, and I definitely think hospitality, commercial cookery is also going to be another one. Tourism domestic tourism is going to be huge, and they're going to need it now. They're going to need staff now because people aren't going to be travelling overseas at least until the end of the year. So they're going to need staff in those areas. So they're going to need, asset control. So cleaners within hotels. They're going to need restaurant staff. They're going to need, and these are going to be people who were in totally different industries before, who now need to come in and learn new skills. So these are the areas you need to go to your local council and your state and find out what are their skill shortages, and that's what you need to target right now.
Right. Okay. Now I know one of the things that has been birthed out of this whole process for you, Angela, has been your online training superhero course. Tell us about that. Who's it for, and what would be accomplished from that?
Yeah, so we started with the education and isolation course, and from there it evolved where I identified that our market's not just domestic, not just RTOs, it's also non-accredited training providers. So the online training superhero course that we've developed is an 8-week course that includes, we go through in depth into the technology that you need. So looking at the apps, the webinar software, the gaming software, the quizzes, things like that. We also look at the equipment that you're going to need to be able to deliver that training online. And we also go through how to build a portal. So if you're going to be building a course, and what is the structure for building a course? And this comes from our years of experience of developing course structures. And it's basically pulling those ideas out of your head if you're doing non-accredited and getting it out into a structure of modules and lessons so that you can sell them and you're able to deliver them online. But it's been a massive area where we've really identified our clients and the industry really need how to learn how to use those tools and techniques to be able to deliver the training, because delivering is just one side of it. You also got to market it and sell it. So we also cover that area as well within the course, and it's a quite intensive course. So not only have we got the online course, we've also built an online training superhero package, and the package is where we actually have 6 strategy sessions with our clients where we pull out all those ideas out of your head on how to structure your course and what needs to be included in there. And then we also have the course, so you can do the online course with us, but then we build you a portal and we help you with the marketing. My background prior to getting into the training industry was marketing and graphic design. So I won't be doing the designs, but we work with a designer and come up with, a PowerPoint template that you can use, also your branding for your website. If you have a logo, we work with that logo, and then copywriting. And that all comes from the automation that we've used with our outsourcing that we've used, where we can help our clients do that. And then we're building an online portal with a landing page, and also has the whole mechanism to be able to do referrals and sales through the whole website. So, so something that we've definitely identified is something required by the industry moving into the future.
Right. So it sounds to me, Angela, like no doubt there are some business owners sitting at home thinking, gee, I missed the boat. I should have got onto this 2 or 3 months ago when everything went down. But from what you're saying, it's not too late, and someone could still stake their claim on online training.
Yeah, it's definitely not too late. Actually, as I said earlier, for me, the first thing I identified is the training industry has changed forever. It will never, ever be the same. And what I mean by that is students are going to expect to have a flexible delivery mode. They're going to expect to have an online component. They've already been doing it. Look at how we meet now. Like I would have 6 Zoom meetings a day. I'm so used to getting online and meeting with people online. I'm doing all of my training online for myself personally. People are going to expect it. And if you don't have an online component, if you're only purely delivering face-to-face, you're going to lose a whole market, because it's going to be those training organizations or people who are delivering training who have the combined, so they have online with a face-to-face method, that are going to champion the training industry. They're the ones that are really going to lead it, because it will be expected. School students coming out of school are going to expect it. It's just the whole industry's changed. So has the event industry changed.
Right. So where's an ideal place for someone to start, Angela? Would it be the online training superhero course, or do you do like a consultation with them to see what might be an ideal fit for them?
Yeah, so they can do, you can start with just the online training superhero. We actually have a few free webinars that we offer as well, where we give you a taster of what it's like and what you need to have in place. And we have those on our website and on vivacity.com.au that you can access. And there's a range of free courses that we offer on there as well on how to learn how to do that. For us, the big thing is you need to really identify, well, okay, what are you going to deliver? Who is your target market? And then we work with you to identify how we pull that out of your head and then put it into a training product. I'll give you an example of one we've got right now. We've got a client who wants to deliver training in cybersecurity. It's something he'd been thinking about doing for quite some time, but still hadn't launched it. He's got all these ideas, but he's a very creative star thinker. So everything's all floating around up the top. So we basically pull that out and then put it into a plan so that he can then deliver that and then people can get online. But it's a perfect example of, we've got an audience now around the world. We're not restricted to just Australia.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's another good thing that can come out of it. So, Angela, you mentioned earlier the dance studio who had successfully transitioned from face-to-face to working online. What have been some other surprising success stories for you? Or maybe they're not a surprise for you, but they're a surprise for the owner, so to speak.
For the owner, yeah. So we've had one of our clients in South Australia who have actually opened up everything now. They started getting recordings of all of their they do master classes, so their commercial cookery. They deliver training in that area. And that was, I actually said to them, whilst you still, this was at the start of it all, I said, whilst you still got some classes, because I knew the lockdown was coming, I said, start recording those master classes. And then, so the big thing is they were a CRICOS organisation, which means they have international students, and their students were stuck in China or India, still overseas, and they couldn't come to Australia. So what they could do is they were able to deliver pre-course material of live webinars or recordings that they could send to those students going on to the future. Due to this, they've now launched a whole online platform where it was in the pipeline. They talked about it, but it fast-tracked because of all of this. And now they've got content on there, and they've actually launched it. They still see that they'll do a face-to-face model, but they have also identified great opportunities for international students to be able to get some training prior to coming to Australia. And I've also had another client who has done all of their inductions online. So they have an induction video, and they actually doing it live. So before they even come to Australia, they're doing a live induction, giving them a tour of Australia, what they need to know, where they can stay for accommodation, what they're going to need for living in Australia, and they're pre-prepared before they come to Australia. So they've actually come up with strategies that are going to minimise the amount of time that they need to spend with the student once they come into Australia, because they've already had all that pre-course training prior to arriving in Australia. And it's due to these training organisations that have done this that we've actually pipped the market with international students. And it's also because of the social distancing that we've had here, that we're like, the borders are going to open up next month for Chinese students, which is amazing for Australia. And it means that we're going to dominate the market when it comes to international education. So I see there was what else have I seen? A lot of the clients that we've had. Another client I've got. So she's delivering aged care training and community services. She's built a whole studio now with lights and sound and cameras, and she's got the whole studio there. She's doing regular video casting from there. She's now doing video testimonials within the same room. And they're delivering recording content that will complement the training. And she just said, if it wasn't for what we had done with her training, she wouldn't have even come up with this idea. But she's seen a whole opportunity where she's able to access a whole new audience.
Right, that's fascinating. Angela, I don't know if you've had much time to think about the future of your business, but where do you see yourself in 6 months, 12 months, and maybe 2 years' time?
Okay, so in the future, so if we look at 6 months, 6 months we will have a whole non-accredited training side of the business set up. So we're going to do a whole service package that will be looking after all of those, coaches, consultants, and people who are delivering face-to-face training on how to get online. So that will be launched by then. We also see that we will be doing I've got some people who still want face-to-face, but I am also seeing that we've got a much bigger audience. I'm actually seeing that we've always only been based in Australia. We actually identify that, within 12 months, we're going to have international clients. So we'll be having people who will be doing training with us. The Australian quality compliance system is world recognised, in particular in Asia. So I actually see a lot of our compliance training would work for overseas as well, which means that we're able to deliver it online. So what I see in the future is within, if I look back 12 months in the future from to now, I think what we'll see is new platforms built, online training. We're releasing another 10 courses by the end of by 12 months time, and I see the future of how we work within this industry is very much helping not only the compliance but the business side of running training organisations, and successful ones. So I would say at least 50% of what we do would be online.
Great. So before we wrap up and get into logistics of how people can get hold of you, is there anything we haven't covered on the interview so far that you would want to add as a closing comment?
No, I think the biggest thing with the training industry is we are a very important sector of the community. And it's very much we need to be connected with the community. We need to understand what their requirements are, and getting to industry and actually identifying what their needs are. The only way we're going to know what training we need to provide in the future is actually go out and ask industry what are their needs, and also go to the students and identify, what are they wishing? How do they wish to work? What type of work do they want to do? A big thing that I can see is a big opportunity for training organisations delivering business is teaching people how to work from home, how to have businesses that work from home. And how to facilitate that, including, having regular meetings and that sort of side of it. We have changed. We're not going back to normal. There will not be the normal that we used to know. It will be a very different environment. Our whole office now, we've closed down our office and all of our team work from home. The way I see it, I can now hire anybody in Australia. It doesn't matter whereas we were restricted before, particularly when our office was in Newcastle. Not a lot of people wanted to live there, and they didn't want to move away from their cities. Now it doesn't matter. We have opportunities where we can work with people anywhere in Australia because we know it works now. We've been doing it successfully now for 3 months.
That's great. And I'm glad you mentioned there that you're going to be including programs about how to work from home, because I know that now that the novelty's wearing off, there'll be a few bad habits will be starting to creep in, and So that'll be something that...
Yeah, the COVID kilos.
COVID kilos, yeah, all of that. But if people want to maintain standards, they'll need to kind of set the standard first, and a training program is a good place for that to happen. So, Angela, in terms of contact details, your website is vivacity.com.au, vivacity.com.au. Anywhere else where you would want to send people to find out more about you?
Yep. So on the website, you can also book in a discovery call if you'd like to have a chat with one of our team members. But connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a big network within the training industry, and I'd love to connect with anybody who's delivering anywhere in the training industry, accredited or non-accredited, because that's my network. We also have a Facebook group called Vivacity Community. The Vivacity Community is all about connecting training providers around Australia so that we can learn from each other. So it's very much a community where we can learn not only RTO world, but also marketing and business development and business growth. Because the way I see it, we want to have good quality training organisations. We don't want... what is a risk right now when government funding comes out is dodgy operators. They tend to start springing up RTOs all over the place because they know government funding is coming. We want to work with those quality providers who have a genuine interest in providing that quality education.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Angela, for having me on your podcast and for being on your podcast as a guest. I always love these types of interviews because I get to know our clients better, but also to understand your field a bit more. And even though I knew you were an expert at what you do, this interview, and I'm sure the listeners would agree, they've got a sense that you really do know what you're doing, and anyone would be in good hands to be working with you.
Yeah, I love what we do. As I say, I tried to leave it once, and I know I'll never leave it again.
Didn't work. Okay. Right. Well, thank you once again, Angela. Bye for now.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. You've been listening to the Education in Isolation podcast with me, Angela Connell. Do you know someone else who could benefit from learning about opportunities and strategies to provide training online? Please take a moment to share this and other episodes via your podcast app, email, or social media channels. Each share helps us reach listeners just like you who can benefit from our content. The Education in Isolation podcast is proud to be part of the Experts on the Air podcast network.